Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the best morning afternoon show on the internet, or afternoon morning show. It's one of the two, or it's both. How's it going, guys? This is the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled, and this episode is sponsored by the King Pilled Discord. If you aren't in there, you are missing out. We had a great schizo stream on Friday, brought to us by one of the members of the Discord. We talked about dental, weird schizo-dental stuff that was very interesting. There's a lot of evidence in the modern American facial structure as to the complete degeneracy of our bodies. And you'd be surprised to know that one of the examples that he used to prove this was Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill actually has strong evidence of degenerate dental structure that I just realized I'm kind of not really getting picked up by that light because I moved my desk forward unintentionally. There, that's a little better. Now I don't look like I'm completely sitting in darkness. Henry Cavill surprisingly has degeneracy in his physiognomy that indicates a dysfunction with his like dental palate and this relative to the size of his tongue, and it's very, very interesting stuff, proving once again that physiognomy is one of the only hard sciences left. And we've got some other interesting future schizo stream topics that I've been accumulating as well. So if you're not in there, you're missing out. Schizo stream is available to everyone on the King Pill Discord, so go to kingpill.com and sign up and come join us. You can also support this show with a super chat. It's a new month, starting over at 0 again, so you can send a super chat, you can become a channel member, or you can also, if you want to give a little bit less money to Globo Corp, then you can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled, and you can send some buckaroos that way. What's going on, chat people? I noticed very early on here a message from my sweet and wonderful mother-in-law, Rhonda Bolin. She says, good morning and happy Labor Day. It's good to see you, Gaga. I see Mr. Westford, Columrosh, Nephilim, Taylor, Roberto Ronnie. I don't recognize that name. I don't know if you've been here before, but it's good to have you. I don't know if you've been a lurker and a first-time commenter, but I keep track of most of you guys that are commenting here, and I don't recognize that name. Do I ever change hoodie? Yes, I actually have. I have 4 hoodies basically that I cycle through here. I have a blue one, a black one. I have a gray Seahawks one, and I have a green. I just forgot the brand. One of those sports brands just escaped my mind. But yeah, I do have some hoodies that I cycle through. I'm not just wearing the same one over and over and over again. All right, so got a number of different things today that we're gonna when we touch on the Elon Brazil thing. I had so many different tabs open for it that I was like, you know what, fuck it. We're just gonna scroll through Elon's timeline starting a few days ago because he's been posting like mad. And he touched on a couple other topics that I thought were interesting to get into as well. So we'll talk about some Elon and Brazil stuff. We're going to talk about the gangs in Aurora. We're going to talk about raw milk. It was great to see everyone on the internet dunking on Matt Walsh for his very cucked and soy raw milk takes. And I've got some raw milk here sitting in front of me right now, and I've got raw milk in my coffee right now. So we're gonna weigh in on the raw milk debate as well. But before that, got a handful of other odds and ends sorts of clips. Starting off today with a good one. This is a funny one. I don't know why it's doing this now. Every day when I start off, it doesn't give me my number one tab anymore. So Walmart Battle Orc. Here we go.
If I snap my fingers, you'll forget that you were ever gay.
I was never gay.
Exactly.
Wait, no, stop.
Yes.
No, stop. You can't. I was never gay.
Okay.
No, I was never gay.
Sure.
You can't just state something and snap your fingers and then be like, I was never gay.
If you say so. If
If you say so. What I want to know is, like, if I want to pull this one on someone, because this is great. This is fantastic. It's a good way to get someone just absolutely squirming and very quickly realizing the hopelessness in life. But if I do it, do I need the African accent? I don't even know if I can do an African accent. It kind of just is like you make your voice a little deeper and then you overpronounce every single thing you say. Whoa, I just realized I'm on the bottom of the screen. That's odd. What is this? Is this normal? Yeah, that's normal. That's more comfortable. Taylor says, not gonna lie, I know very little about raw milk. Can anyone tell me why you should drink it? Milk destroys me, so I don't really do milk anyways. Yes, I will explain to you once we get to that part. I'll give you the lowdown on it. If it destroys you, it's probably if milk destroys you, it's probably because you haven't been drinking raw milk. That's the that would be the big difference. Okay, this one here is for Taylor. It is now, if you're a true American, you know that it is now college football season. And this is very interesting. So we've got the most popular college football show that is bringing on Shane Gillis as a guest. Given Shane Gillis is what he's become known for most recently, and honestly, the way that the celebrity like this goes, the thing he's probably most known for now is his Donald Trump impression. So College Game Day must know very well who their target demographic is because they're bringing on someone like Shane Gillis. This Pat McAfee's kicking contest, Shane Gillis and a random Texas A&M kid. Listen to this.
Hey, Pat, I can save you from this if you don't want Lucas to do it again.
Let's get the ball back. Let's get the ball back.
You're going to do it?
Here we go.
Pat, you always tell me to save you. You tell me to save you. I'm offering right now a chance to save you.
Nah, this one will be for $50,000.
Okay.
Shane over here looks kind of uncomfortable. Like he looks like he's a little bit out of his element. Ultimately, he's probably more theater kid than frat boy, but he can play a good frat boy. But he looks pretty uncomfortable here.
$50,000.
Okay.
That was the best ball you'll ever hit in your life, and that thing was nowhere close. Here we go, Lucas.
It's a lot of pressure, Lucas.
What do you think President Trump would say if he saw Lucas trying to kick?
What a loser.
More gutsy. Tight. They're in tight.
Oh, buddy, watch your face. Lucas for the second attempt. This is for $50,000. And also Texas A&M.
American culture right here.
I can't open it. I tried. How about this form, Nick?
You know who would be 100% at home in that environment? Donald Trump. Imagine Donald Trump out there before college football kicks off, out there enjoying the festivities. He would be absolutely at home. It'd be great to see. I want to know what is it that I've been doing wrong with my life that I haven't wound up in a position where I can make a kick like that for 50 grand. Because I could probably make a kick like that with my left foot. That's a little chip shot. Oh, man. And here I am streaming on the internet to you jamokes. All right. Another one. So Dave Smith and Walter Block had a debate on Israel, and we got one of the most amazing, I don't know, verbal copy pastas that will ever exist on the internet. This is incredible. I don't know if I'm wondering if I can get away with playing this, but the video was on YouTube, so I would assume I'm somewhat safe. Listen to this.
And Tom, you're a dirty Jew, you're a kike, I hate you, you're evil, I'm going to kill you. And I have here a knife. Well, it's pinned, but what the heck, work with me. I have a knife, I'm going to kill you. Not only am I going to kill you, you kike, I'm going to kill your wife and your kids and your parents and your cousins and all your friends that are near you. I'm going to kill you all. And I've got a knife and I'm very powerful. And
this is absolutely glorious. And this is what happens when you put boomers on the internet. They inadvertently give you great things like this. For as long as this is brilliant from Bird, honestly, to put this out here, because this tweet is going to be one of the most hyperlinked tweets in the history of the internet. Everyone is going to be linking to this tweet, sending it back and forth to one another. What was the context of this? So Walter Block is a notorious anarchist Jew, and heavy emphasis on both of those. So this was him in the middle of arguing a deranged pro-Israel position. I don't even need to listen to it. I know Walter Block. I've heard commentary from it. I can tell by the fact that this was taken out of the conversation that I don't need to listen to the rest of it. I know exactly how it went. But yeah, so this is him. This is him, like I don't know, attempting to frame the opposition. And he inadvertently just gave us one of the greatest videos in the history of the internet. Okay, so got a little bit of election commentary here, and this is going to be the presentation of this person, and the content of this person's commentary is going to be quite jarring.
Well, my friends, Kamala's first interview was an utter calamity. It was also incredibly boring. I would have rather gotten a colonoscopy, but I do it for you guys. I'm a martyr. I do it for you. Now, let me start off by saying the bar is so low, it's in the 7th ring of hell. I wasn't expecting much from Kamala Harris, but I was expecting a little bit better. She's had 40 days to prepare. Kamala Harris answered those questions like she'd just been pulled over by highway patrol and was asked to take a breathalyzer and walk in a straight line. Like, ma'am, could you step out of the car? And she's like, my values haven't changed because they're my values. I'm going to start calling Kamala Anna Nicole Harris. The way she was talking, it was like, I've been very clear. I love fracking. I've been clear since 2020 that I stand by fracking, Dana. Kamala Harris had 40 days to prepare. She did not give one clear, cogent, substantive answer the entire time. One thing I found incredibly ridiculous is asking Kamala Harris what she wants to do on day one. What do you want to do when you get into office? She's been vice president for almost 4 years. I also felt like Dana, whatever, was leading the witness. She was like, Kamala, did you do this because of A, B, or C? This is not the SAT multiple choice section. She's running for president of the United States. Ask her a question and let her answer. Now, Kamala Harris, she's supposed to have the best people around her with all these years of political experience, but let me tell you one mistake they made. Their biggest mistake is that they waited 40 days to do a sit-down interview. Had she been doing regular interviews, the stakes wouldn't have been that high. It wouldn't have been such a big deal. She would have developed a rapport and a cadence with all of these journalists, but instead, we're all watching now with a fine-tooth comb. Now let's talk about Mr. Jazz Hands Tim Walz. He was there next to Kamala Harris the entire time, but he did not do much better. When he was asked if he lied about IVF or his military record, he said, well, my wife says I don't have the best grammar sometimes. Sir, telling bold-faced lies and then saying, well, I could have had better grammar is the most ridiculous cop-out thing I've ever heard. You clowns had 40 days to prepare, and this is the best product you could come up with. Now, my most important question about the entire interview is this. Why are you guys sitting around a dark, dingy diner slumped over tables? Why don't you look presidential at all? Why are you not sitting down doing an official interview? Kamala, you're hunched over like this, waiting for a shot and a chaser. This whole thing was a calamity. If y'all are gonna do your first interview in a diner, you should have gone to the Waffle House. That place is lit up like the Chrysler Building. I'm starting to think Joe Biden extended his vacation this week because he didn't want to be around at all to answer questions about Kamala's horrific interview. I mean, they really have her hunched over this table in a dark diner. She says she doesn't support the Green New Deal, but they were really saving some electricity having all the lights off. Something else that's laughable from the entire interview is that Kamala Harris wants to blame Donald Trump for all of America's issues. But if you look at the last 16 years, 12 of those years have had Democratic presidents. She really sat there and said, well, 10 years ago this started, and 10 years ago that started. Sweetheart, Barack Obama was president 10 years ago. Get the girl a calculator. All right, my friends, we've got less than 70 days until the election. Thanks for liking and following. Drop a comment and tell me what you think about Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, everything going on today. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.
So I stumbled across this as I was wandering through ye old internet, And I was like, what the fuck is this? How does this exist? I must understand this person. What iteration of the internet have we arrived to where we have this person providing absolutely scathing commentary of the default brat choice? What level of irony is this? No, this isn't irony at all. This isn't it's a performance. It's a TikTok. It's someone doing TikTok content. It's a performance. You know what I mean? This isn't like ironic satire. This is an RFK fan. This guy's actually been contacted with and cooperating with the RFK campaign. He's been working with them. Knows them personally, has been to RFK's house. I went over to TikTok. I actually opened TikTok for the first time in like 3 months just to go look up It's Link Lauren. I went to kind of scrolled through. I don't know what's the audience for this. Who are these people? What people exist on the internet who are looking for scathing Kamala Harris commentary delivered by this person? It's hard to believe that it actually exists, but it does. And this is what this guy and his audience are going to be voting for Trump. This is what it looks like when you have a populist movement coming together. I'm more than happy for this guy to be doing the dirty work out in the trenches, getting Trump elected. Bizarro world indeed, Kate. Yes. What's up, Brent Taylor? He says, I'm at work during the holiday, and boy, oh boy, the king has my back. Thank you. You're welcome. I didn't even realize it was a holiday. I haven't paid attention to holiday schedules in forever now. The only holidays that really exist to me are 4th of July to some extent, Thanksgiving, and Christmas. Those are the only ones that ever really register on my radar. I guess Halloween a little bit as well. But yeah, so it's just a normal Monday to me. Jazz Ham Tim Walls is from That Guy is Hilarious. Yeah, right. Taylor Brown says, Tucker just tweeted an interview with Martyrmade. I saw that just as I was going over to YouTube to get this live. That's the first thing I'm going to be watching after I finish the show here. As well as due to a suggestion from Meta Prime, which I think is very good. He said I should take all of the clips and stuff that I go through, all the tweets, and I should make a thread after the show linking all of them, because sometimes he wants to go and retweet stuff or comment on it or whatever. And I thought, you know what? That's a really good idea. So as soon as I finish the show today, I'm going to be creating a master thread of all the stuff that I've gone through. So if you want to find that, if you see any clips or videos or tweets or anything that you want to look into more, then you can just go over to Real King Pilled and look for the day's master thread after each astrolabe. Okay. What do I got here? What this does mean is I need to keep all of the tabs open, because normally I open them and then once I've watched them, I close them and don't even think about them again. Now I have to keep them all open and keep track of them. A little bit of polling stuff here. Mail-in ballot requests have plummeted in Georgia since 2020. Biden won the mail-in vote there by over 30 points. August 29 of 2020 requests 806,561. August 31 of 2024 down to 80,240, a decrease of 90%. Data is from Michael Prusser of Decision Desk HQ, who says that Harris's margin with VBMs, is that vote by mail must be, with vote by mails will increase because of there being less overall, but that Kamala won't get the raw vote advantage Biden had in 2020. Reminder, Biden only won Georgia by 0.23 points, I'd say won Georgia, or 11,779 votes. Less mail-ins equals faster for us to figure out on election night Trump's odds in Georgia. In my opinion, the fall-off in vote by mail will benefit Trump if it benefits anyone. The numbers themselves are very interesting to me, because I'm not under the illusion that the election fortification schemes are the fact that they're not using one doesn't necessarily imply that they haven't found another one. But this is very interesting to me, because the vote by mail thing was such a major initiative for them. And obviously they were using COVID to do that. And so this in part, I would say this shows it's probably a combination of voter fatigue. People just are completely checked out on the election altogether, which is something that would benefit Trump. It's also probably a product of just how many people used it only because of COVID. They wouldn't normally have done it. And so now they're like, I don't need to go look for that. I'll just whatever on the day of. I don't need. I want to like get mail sent here and try to keep track of it and send it in or whatever. Now that I don't have to, I'm just going to go to the just go vote normally in person. Which also I think is pretty interesting. It's revealing about voter psychology and yeah, it's an interesting data point. This is a good guy to follow if you want to keep track of this stuff. I'm just trying to keep appraised of it for these sorts of little blips that come out. This is Eric Doherty, assistant news director at Florida Voice News, Marylander turned Floridian elections and news. He's been really tracking all of the ballots, all the ballot info and everything. There's just a consistent, steady drumbeat at this point. Once you recognize that the thing I showed last week of when Democrats are like +1, +2, +3, there's still sizable odds that the Republican is actually going to win. And then looking even further, if you recognize that the vast majority of these polls, even ones, and especially ones that have Kamala winning, there or Kamala in the blue, they're in the plus Kamala, they are vastly oversampling Democrats. So the fact that you're doing political polling in the first place means you're oversampling certain demographics, because the vast majority of people, especially younger people, aren't answering political polls. It's just not like, what, you're answering the phone? No. Millennials, Zoomers, we don't answer our phones unless we recognize the number. So if you're calling us from some unknown number, we're not going to answer that. What are you, emailing? Ads? Like banner ads? Yeah, we've all got ad blockers. So, like, to actually answer a political poll requires you to be a particular type of person that naturally skews Democrat. And then, above and beyond that, or I wouldn't say naturally skews Democrat, but naturally skews most likely to vote Democrat in an election like this. And then, above and beyond that, you have the oversampling of the polls. So it's like the polls are at least doubly, if not triply biased in the Democrat favor. So every time you read a poll, you have to factor this in. So if it has Kamala up by a small margin, that means that the actual likelihood of the votes, the actual votes that happen, skewing much more toward Trump from whatever that point is. Have to speak around all these little like qualify and asterisk everything, just to make sure that it's abundantly clear. Yes, I'm aware of election fortification. We were one of the first people that were talking about it when it was happening. I'm very aware of that. All of this is said within that context. Column Rush says newest polls showed Trump up in Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. Yeah. And there's a rumor of one of the most accurate pollsters out there. I have the tweet somewhere. I didn't pull it up. One of the most historically accurate pollsters out there supposedly has a poll that shows Trump up 19, I think, in Iowa. All of these things are showing, like, I think Kamala was already wildly unpopular in the Rust Belt, and then Walz just made her even more unpopular. Normally you'd have, this is something else I tweeted, you can go see it at Real King Pilled on Twitter. Normally a convention results in a boost for the candidate of that convention. A little honeymoon period, they get a big shot of energy and they soar for a bit and then they level off again. Trump is already up on net over Kamala in the polls since the convention. There was no convention boost for her. She got that big injection at the beginning with this massive campaign, created this high, and everyone talked about the high and made it a little higher. And it has completely vanished, completely disappeared. On a historical level, this is a historically bad political campaign with an even worse candidate. And yet, there's a number of different demographics you could draw from to constitute the doomers, but the doomers are out there trying to tell you that, oh, she's really scary and really dangerous and Trump doesn't stand a chance and look how brilliant this campaign is. Maybe I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe They're just doing this as a 4D chess move to ensure that Trump voters actually go out and vote and don't think, oh, we've got it in the bag. Because yes, you absolutely should go out and vote. In this election, yes, 100%. You should go out and you should vote at the federal level. Who knows about future elections? But if you don't go out and vote in this one, then that kind of answers the question about future elections. It becomes for the person who's like, oh, it doesn't matter, our votes don't matter. Yeah, this becomes a self-realizing prediction if you don't vote in this particular election. All right, enough election stuff. Let's have some fun. Brandon Herrera turned an Elon Musk Cybertruck. I like how he tags Elon in this. Good social media here. Into a real-life Halo Warthog with a functional 50 cal turret. Don't take it down, YouTube.
I turned my Cybertruck into a real-life Halo Warthog.
This truck is so fucking fun.
I turned my Cybertruck into a real...
This is the kind of content I live for. I'm trying to find real quick. See, I got a little critique. Here we go. Can I... Let's see here. If I just pull this over and drop it here. Perfect. All right, so I think that... I love the concept. Obviously, adding the turret is a great touch. And this looks like just so much fun rocking around in a Cybertruck. But I do have to say that the wrap could use a little... I don't know. They could have put a little more into the wrap because I would not at all think Cybertruck if I saw it. This is a Cybertruck wrap. I would not think Warthog if I saw it. This is a Warthog wrap. I took this picture myself at a Buc-ee's in the greater Austin area a couple weeks ago. That right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is how you do a Warthog wrap. This one was another one that I saw. 5 minutes after I saw this one, I was sitting here marveling at it. Oh, and the great thing was the guy driving it was like 80. I don't know if it was like his son's or his grandson's Cybertruck and he was just out driving it, but I did not expect to see an 80-year-old driving a Cybertruck with a Warthog wrap on it. This one, though, man, this guy drove in like 5 minutes later. They honked at each other, and he drove around in the parking lot, and people just came. There's people coming out of the building, people walking over from the pumps, taking pictures of it, walking around it. This guy, he looked like someone who would have been driving one with a Warthog wrap on it. But it said, "Make America Great Again" on the hood. And on the back here, it has the quote, "In reality, they're not after me. They're after you, and I'm just in the way." I do not care what anyone says. I want a Cybertruck. Especially after having driven a Tesla and really enjoying the experience, I really want a Cybertruck now. It's brilliant the way that they've made them like an easel or they're like a template for you to build on top of. So they've productized them really, really well. There's so much. If you go to the Tesla website and look at all the products that they have around, they've created a cult around their product, the same way that Apple did. It's absolutely brilliant productizing and marketing. There is 100% a total cult around it, and they are monetizing the hell out of it. And people are happy to do it because they enjoy the product so much. You could teach an entire college level degree just on, really on all of Elon's products, but Tesla in particular. So of course I had the Warthog clip. I had to put this one in here as well. If you had invested in Apple in 2007, me in 2007. Just watching this video gives me flashbacks. It gives me nostalgia on one hand, and it gives me like I don't know what would be the opposite, where it's like negative nostalgia. I've spent hours and hours and hours on this. I lost hours of my life and probably took years off the end of it. Broke controllers. This whole sequence on Legendary was brutal. Totally gave me flashbacks. I'm like this was my Vietnam. Okay, let me see what you guys are saying here in the chat. Straight Buster's catching up while his son plays with the chickens in the yard. Happy Labor Day, wage slaves. God is good. Shout out to the wage slaves out there. Taylor Brown says, if Trump carries Iowa as bigly as they projected him a few months ago, he carries the entire Rust Belt. Yep. The more she talks, the lower she pulls. Greetings. You gotta pick up the cigarettes, Taylor. That's the secret. If you pick up the cigarettes, you'll get there. I mean, you've already got it. Your voice is already primed for it. Just add a little gravel to it. I've heard you talk. Greetings. Well, Andrew Kelly says, Wall Street Journal just dropped a headline saying voter pessimism going down. The number in the first paragraph of the article says now only 48% are saying we're on the wrong path as opposed to 34% optimists. Yeah, I mean, I'd have to see what the numbers are for it, how they actually derive those numbers. I would need to see the questions on the poll, how the questions are framed. Were they framed the same as they were before? Because this is another one of the ways that they game the polls is by the specific question that they ask. They'll frame it in such a way, and there's a lot of psychology that goes into this to try to get the answer that they want out of it. So if you can drop a link, I'll go look into it later and see. Remind those alien bastards why it is that we're made in God's image. Yes. For naysayers, a Cybertruck is just as practical for truck stuff as a Ram TRX. Yeah, I mean, unless you're trying to get unless you're like an absolute enthusiast that's just trying to go absolutely ham with it, definitely. There's a great interview that, or not an interview, a video that Tucker posted on his channel, talking to some of the guys in rural Maine about what they thought of it. And they were like, there's like, for them, the biggest thing was the electric battery in the winter and the range how it would be affected. And they were like, for a lot of the harder stuff, like it wouldn't be practical, but for a lot of stuff, it absolutely would be. Towing, a lot of the day-to-day puttering around and working and stuff that they do. There's a lot. I've seen a number of guys down here in Texas that are like roofers and other types of contractors that have Cybertrucks. They're towing around their trailer. They've got tools and stuff in the back, and they've got it wrapped with all of their company branding and logo and phone numbers, contact info, social media, and everything. There's a bunch of them here. It's very useful for unless you're getting really like it's not going to compete with a 1-ton diesel truck, but it's not supposed to. Mr. Westford says, as a 12-year-old, I should have been investing Apple instead of beating Halo 3 on Legendary. Right, but then you wouldn't have been a 12-year-old. Okay. Stumbled across an interesting little video here talking about UFO disclosure. This is in 1993, a clip of a NASA mission specialist named Bob Eschler talks during an interview about how disclosure was to be revealed to the public. So this is kind of interesting because I don't think you would be able to get this sort of interview on television now. But go back to 1993, and some of them were saying some wild stuff.
Okay, if these governments, the Canadian government, the American...
Peak 1993 look here. Just couple little wisps of a comb over, now he would probably he'd either be getting hair plugs like Pavel Durov, flying to Turkey, getting the hair plugs, or he would just be shaving it all off and rocking it bald.
If these governments, the Canadian government, the American government, if they are in possession of spacecraft, if they have made contact with aliens, why don't they tell us?
What I was able to learn is that the issue of secrecy dates back into the early 1950s, and in 1959, actually, NASA had a study conducted by the Brookings Institution in Washington, D.C., addressing the issue of whether this alarming issue of a confrontation with an extraterrestrial culture should be released to the public, this information. It was determined that there would be grave consequences for just an overt public pronouncement by government officials. So a determination...
What does that mean? We would all panic.
Well, not necessarily just panic, but the issues that it presented, not only theology, but issues involving economics, standards of monetary concerns. If you acknowledge type of technology that renders fossil fuel-related industries obsolete,
Yes.
for example, you have grave consequences economically all the way around the world.
Of course you do. All our values are rendered.
So it's a banger of a clip so far. The hair plugs are shaving it off, or he'd be asked to have a seat by Chris Hansen. It was one thing we've talked about in the past. I did a space with Meta Prime several weeks ago talking about the disclosure of dark tech, and this is one thing that I think comes along with the tech elite takeover, them deciding to wrestle the levers of power over to themselves. I think that it's inevitable that we're going to start seeing disclosure of these types of things. I think they've been out there for a long time. I think Tucker Carlson's assessment of the UFO thing, that these are spiritual in nature, I think that's absolutely true. Father Seraphim Rose was saying this decades ago. They're absolutely spiritual, not extraterrestrial. But the technology implications for the way that these entities have made contact with us is through disclosure of things. Think the Promethean myth. This is why you get a lot of guys who talk about, like Steve Jobs, for example, talking about tripping on acid and that being one of the key insights to him in the technology that he went on to create. A lot of the technological breakthroughs that human beings have are a product of interacting with spiritual beings. Those spiritual beings drop us little breadcrumbs, little hints of things about how reality works. But they're dropping it in a context that will lead us to innovate in technology in self-destructive ways. So many of the little things that they're dropping may have they're like technically true, as in they're operational in reality, but we're not prepared for them. There's no way that we can integrate them into our lives in like a healthy, productive, pro-life, pro-human type of a way. This is from the Garden of Eden through the Tower of Babel and on, all throughout history. This is the rise and fall of human civilizations. They're all mediated by technology and by us having access to knowledge before we're prepared for it. We're being dragged through this process of spiritual maturation, so to speak. Our pride is being capitalized on to redirect our will to seek things that we're not prepared for yet. This is the pursuit of knowledge, the pursuit of gnosis. This is like the hook in our nose that the demons use to lead us on. So there's no doubt in my mind that this sort of technology already exists. I've seen various different things, like Ashton Forbes, the guy working on the Malaysian flight stuff, flight MH370. I've been fully persuaded after seeing his presentations that the videos are authentic and that we're seeing teleportation. The teleportation of a physical object is not something of science fiction. It's something that the global we, have stumbled upon and figured out how to start doing shit with. Things like free energy and interstellar travel, like all of the travel that would facilitate interstellar travel, the travel technology. All of these things are, if we're seeing stuff about them if they're being released commercially or we're seeing things about them commercially now, then there's no question in my mind that they've existed within these, I don't know, like dark offshoots of the military for decades. But it's interesting here, the reasoning that he gives for why, I mean, what do you say, NASA and Brookings? So this is just regime central. They determined if this sort of thing was to exist, if the U.S. government was to have made contact with entities, that's tied now to technology. Well, they revealed technology to us, or we figured it out by studying them. And that the implications of that technology were such that it could never be released, or it would, well, actually, he says something here in just a minute at the end of the clip, but it would be far too dangerous to just release. And notice the things that he talks about. Theology, it would have theological implications. And the guy says, oh, everyone would freak out. He's like, oh, no, not necessarily. It's not really that everyone would freak out. It's that it would have profound implications on money, theology, and energy. Then listen to what he says here in the last 10 seconds.
All our values are rendered
So the
worthless then, yes.
the determination was made that the only way to avoid this chaos would be through a slow indoctrination process over a matter of decades.
A slow indoctrination process over the matter of decades. Very, very interesting. I wonder if such a thing could be true. In a not at all related note the sarcasm. Big breaking, new peer-reviewed research firmly backs up claims that Bitcoin mining is a powerful tool for reducing methane emissions. This groundbreaking paper highlights the ability for BTC mining to utilize methane from landfills. Methane is 28 times more potent for warming than carbon dioxide. Mitigating methane has very positive impacts on the environment. Think of this now in context of RFK joining forces with Trump. So now being pro-Bitcoin and pro-environment can be the same thing. This paper also shows how mining Bitcoin with landfill methane gas is economically viable, further demonstrating the potential of BTC as a tool for good. Myself and the team at Satoshi Action, this is Dennis Porter. I've never seen him before. I'm sure you maxis out there are well aware of him, but he's never come across my timeline before this. He says, myself and the team at Satoshi Action have been working for years to demonstrate how Bitcoin mining can have positive effects. Myself and Dr. Murray Rudd were proud to lead the effort to put this paper together. A huge thank you goes to Nodal Power for supporting this paper and also co-authoring it alongside the Satoshi Action team. Without their help, this paper never would have become a reality. Additionally, the paper was also co-authored by former Greenpeace activist D.S. Batten, who has spent the better part of his career in the Bitcoin ecosystem teaching others about the potential for Bitcoin mining to mitigate methane emissions. The Journal of Publication, Cleaner Production, is ranked in the top 2% when measured by impact factor, making the acceptance of this paper even more important in the fight to demonstrate the potential of Bitcoin. At Satoshi Action, we believe in the need for credible evidence-backed research that we can use to inform lawmakers and regulators as they make their policy decisions. This paper will play a major role in demonstrating to lawmakers the value of BTC mining as a tool for cleaning up the environment. So there's the paper. And it is peer-reviewed, so you know it's trustworthy. For any of those who want to go actually read the paper, again, I'll be making a master thread for this episode of the ASTROLABE that I'll post on Twitter of all the links that I've shared in here as soon as the show is over. Related to Bitcoin, from Bitcoin Magazine, CNBC reports that almost half of all corporate money raised for the presidential election is from Bitcoin and crypto. They're outspending big oil and banks so far. Where the crypto cash is going, winds have followed. Where do you think the crypto money is primarily going?
Now, a few years ago, former President Trump called Bitcoin a scam. But just last month, he spoke at the year's biggest Bitcoin conference and praised Bitcoin, comparing it to the steel industry a century ago. A great story on CNBC.com today about how Trump went from skeptic to believer. And joining us is the reporter behind the story, Mackenzie Sigalis. Matt, welcome.
Hey, Tyler. So for months now, I've been talking to the people who have quietly been helping to orchestrate Donald Trump's total about-face on crypto behind closed doors. The former president's 180 on digital tokens goes back to at least March. Now, that is when 3 Bitcoiners living in Puerto Rico got in touch with the Trump team and joined a chorus of voices, a group that includes Trump's family and friends, that has been actively pushing pro-crypto talking points. We're talking secret meetings at Trump Tower in Nashville and Mar-a-Lago, plus a slew of sideline fundraising events. Now, all in, they have promised him him $100 million and 5 million votes. They've raised 25 million so far, and I'm told that an updated fundraising figure is coming my way soon. Now, Trump is listening, leaning into increasingly pro-Bitcoin talk on the campaign trail. People telling me that he's been learning, as experts have explained that the industry is real and not overrun with criminal activities. There's also the matter of all that cash being raised and donated by crypto executives and businesses. In fact, almost half of all corporate money raised this cycle is from crypto. They're outspending big oil and banks, and so far, where the crypto cash is going in the primary races, wins have followed. We're talking a more than 85% win ratio so far when pro-crypto super PAC money is involved.
So these are pro-crypto forces that are donating this money. They're not necessarily donating it in crypto.
Well, some of them are.
Some of them are, but I'm sure.
Bitcoin, Ether, USDC, more than $4 million worth of cryptocurrencies going to the Trump campaign.
So these would be companies, these would be lobbying groups, professional organizations, etc.
And it's especially the companies that are battling the SEC and Chair Gensler. Ripple and Coinbase are two of the biggest backers of pro-crypto super PACs, not necessarily the Trump campaign in particular, but certainly Fair Shake is one of the biggest vendors.
Quick response to the Harris campaign. What do they say on crypto?
Last week at the Democratic National Convention, we heard from a senior campaign aide, and when he was specifically asked about her stance on crypto, he said that the VP would embrace policies that support emerging technologies. Meanwhile, Coinbase's chief policy officer saying that they've been meeting with the Harris team behind closed doors, and they're very pleased about those talks.
Fantastic. Thanks.
It's a great way of recounting to how you curry influence and power, and yeah.
Thanks for watching Power Lunch, everybody.
The other chick has to get some word in there. I didn't just sit here as a spectator. It's very interesting. This is obviously part and parcel with the tech titan PayPal mafia phenomenon that we identified months ago. Obviously, they're all going to be heavily invested in crypto, and the crypto adjacent industries are going to be speaking to them very much. And that was part of the significance of Trump taking on JD Vance as vice president, is the pro-crypto forces that would come along with him. Not that the forces are, it's not that he's bringing pro-crypto forces, it's that he's bringing forces that are also pro-crypto. So this is a major reason why. Anybody who says, he's a bad choice for VP for like electoral reasons or whatever like that. Remember, it was interesting now that Trump was saying, back when people were asking him about who his VP was going to be, he said, I don't really think electability is that big of a concern. Historically, it hasn't been much of a thing for vice presidents. It was an interesting comment that he made then. And maybe that makes a little more sense in hindsight. I mean, it seems like it seems pretty clear that Vance was not the choice that it was going to be. It was going to be Marco Rubio, and then his first choice after Marco Rubio was RFK. And then he settled on Vance. But I was thinking about that the other day, that Vance obviously was not chosen just for like electoral reasons. He was chosen to bring in this massive swath of influence and money that wanted him. And then he has his electoral uses as well. And then ultimately having him as VP means that many of these forces that want to see a gutting of the administrative state, they know that he's someone who is not going to be easily bought off of that task because he really truly believes in it. So those are the reasons that he was chosen. But it does make me wonder. When Trump made that comment, I wonder if he was thinking about JD Vance. All right, so Taylor, this next little segment here is for you, talking about raw milk. I've got to find my tab. Here it is. So Case Bradford says 15 different raw milk options available on the shelf at the store, 3-block walk away. Every American should have this level of access to healthy, nourishing food and local raw milk. Now, I can tell you that some of this raw milk is not all that nourishing. I mean, probably it's better. This is the stuff that we used to get when we were in California, and I'm pretty sure that he's in California. I can't quite read the price tag on it here. It's probably going to be smaller when I blow it up. Yeah. My guess is that it's probably around $20 a gallon. It was 16 when we were in California. We're paying, I think now we usually get ours for free since my wife does the raw milk runs. So she's ordering like 50 gallons at a time, and we get one free for every 10 she orders. But I think it's $8 a gallon here, the place that we're getting it. So then Matt Walsh had to go and step in it. He says, raw milk is disgusting. We live in a first world civilized society, and people are actively choosing to consume milk riddled with E. coli and listeria. Pasteurization is not some evil sorcery. It just kills the dangerous bacteria, you morons. I loved seeing my entire Twitter timeline dunking on this because this is gay and retarded. He said, next you should go out and drink some raw water straight from your local lake without doing anything to purify it. Enjoy the parasites, hippies. very disappointed to see so many right-wingers falling for this hippie propaganda. Glorifying third world hygiene practices should be the leftist domain. Now, I don't think that this is like Matt Walsh, someone who's like, hey, go out and counter-signal raw milk. I think this is just Matt Walsh just firing from the hip. And he has his uses, but also he's very clearly on a leash, and he has a tendency to just fire off dumb takes like this that show that he's spiritually boomer. Thomas Massey, of course, the absolute Chad. Bad take. I've consumed raw milk almost every day for over 2 years. It's done wonders for my health, and it's delicious. Pasteurization and homogenization can kill germs, but they both diminish the health benefits of the milk. In any case, it's everyone's right to consume it. So I said, little-known historical fact. Everyone was killed by milk-borne bacteria for thousands of years until Louis Pasteur saved us. For whatever reasons, people just kept drinking the death juice and dying across every human society on every continent. It's a miracle our species even survived for Louis to save us from our foolishness. There's this concept called Lindy, which says that essentially if a particular practice or a particular thing has been around for a long time, then there's very good reason to suspect that it's going to continue to be around for a long time. I'm not going to say that human beings aren't capable of habitually, generationally engaging in self-destructive behavior, because obviously that's the case. But for something like drinking milk, it doesn't even pass the sniff test, drinking raw milk. Raw milk or it wasn't even raw milk, it was just milk. For thousands and thousands of years, in every human society, people have been drinking milk. If it was somehow this super dangerous, disgusting thing, riddled with bacteria, wouldn't you think that it would have just killed people off at some point and they would have stopped it? This goes into this whole, like, at the end of history, shitlib brain mentality. Oh, everyone before us was all, like, really rudimentary and a bunch of uncivilized. And no, in fact, in many ways, they were much more civilized than we are. We are degenerating over time across a lot of different vectors. But just because people used to do this thing and now we don't do that thing, and there's this thing that happened in between, therefore it's better now. This is total midwit tier thinking. If milk was like really bad, if drinking milk, it was like bacteria ridden and was just going to be really bad for you and it just makes you sick, and thank goodness we have pasteurization now to prevent that from happening, it never would have persisted as a tens of thousands of years old practice. It would have been weeded out of people's normal habits because it's so disgusting and bad for you. This was my other thought on it was this here. Raw milk is such a simple, useful proxy for determining one's access to his own mental faculties. If you sincerely believe that humans would even exist today if they were just blindly chugging milk for millennia with no clue that it was killing them, you've clearly forsaken the power to think and form judgments outside your conditioning. So I've been drinking raw milk almost exclusively now it started when we were in California, so probably at least 4 years. For a period of time, I was drinking almost a gallon a day. As it is now, I still probably drink at least a half gallon. And I saw a lot of people were commenting. They were like, "Oh, well, the pasteurization is so that we can transport it, and it's safer that way." I don't really have a problem with people drinking pasteurized milk. I still drink it occasionally because I think milk is so good for you that even pasteurized, that's still pasteurized and homogenized, makes it worse, but it's still good for you. A lot of people who are lactose intolerant, the thing that they are, they actually are much better off drinking raw milk because the raw milk has the lactase in it. When you pasteurize and homogenize it, it kills the lactase. But it's in there. So you just drink it and you have the lactase so your body can digest it. So if you're someone who's lactose intolerant, you've avoided drinking, you're like, "Oh, I can't drink raw milk because my body doesn't tolerate milk." It'll probably tolerate raw milk. It's basically like liquid steroids. It's one of the single best things that you can consume. And people are like, "Oh, well, raw milk spoils quickly." Here. This right here, full of milk, raw milk. with a little bit of maple syrup and salt added. Actually, no, I didn't add salt to this one. It was just maple syrup. I poured this yesterday afternoon and then forgot about it. I left it on the banister here upstairs. I saw it there this morning when I came out. I came out of the bedroom. So this has been sitting out now for almost 24 hours, and it tastes just fine. It's not spoiled at all. Doesn't taste like it. And if it did spoil, you know what would happen? It would basically turn into like Greek yogurt. If you want, you can do an experiment. Take a container of raw milk and a container of pasteurized milk. Set them on your counter, leave it there for 5 days. You'll notice the difference. The pasteurized milk will have black stuff growing on it. Do not drink that. The raw milk will be starting to curdle, and it'll be basically like yogurt or kefir. It's starting to get sour. It'll taste sour, but not sour like what you're thinking of with pasteurized milk. With raw milk, it just turns into yogurt. It's actually almost better for you after that. You might never have encountered this because you have to get into some pretty weird little niche corners of the internet for now to find out about this. But I have firsthand experience after listening to other people with firsthand experience. You have no idea just how much you have been completely lied to and misled by so-called health authorities. You might be aware of it in some domains, but if you start paying attention, you're going to stumble across it in a lot of other domains. You're going to keep stumbling upon something and you're like, man, I can't believe I was lied to on this too. You mean I can leave my milk out on the counter and still drink it and it's fine? Yep, if it's raw. Not if it's pasteurized. You definitely don't want to do it if it's pasteurized. Once it starts growing black stuff on it, yeah, don't drink that. That'll make you sick. But if you leave raw milk out, if anything, it almost gets better for you. Increased probiotic content. Ben Weagold says, I love freaking people out and making kefir from raw milk, which entails leaving the milk sitting on the counter for 4 days. See, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, it's fermented. It's like, it's tangy. Kate says, this is key to Matt's shtick to be a contrarian against popular things, so I guarantee you he'll continue to smugly revel in his anti-raw milk crusade and double down on it for the next few days. Yes, of course. Part of this is just engagement generating, and it works, and I guarantee you that he's doing this and laughing. Like, he thinks, oh, look at me, I'm all edgy, I got all the weird hippies all pissed off. But raw milk, yeah, the hippies are right about some stuff. And I love this hippie right-wing Giga Chad crossover thing that's happening. I will add that I'm not anti-pasteurized milk, and I think being anti-pasteurized milk is silly because milk is good. Drink milk no matter what. But if you can get raw milk in a way that's not breaking your back, then absolutely drink it. You should see the studies that have been done on kids who were raised on raw milk. Their like ability to generate muscle, their energy levels, their lack of cognitive deficits, cognitive impairments is striking. It's significant, like 20% greater. When's the Daily Wire commentary on milk coming? Yeah, see, this is actually their, we're going to find out pretty soon that drinking milk is actually Nazi coded. Taylor says, I'm becoming increasingly more crunchy, especially as I'm in the KP Discord. Yes, that's a great sales pitch for the Discord. If you would like to become more crunchy, join the King Pill Discord. If the idea of becoming more crunchy turns you off, then we're not someone that we want. Taylor says, coconut oil helped heal my throat when I had awful mono. Not a single doctor told me about it. I had to find it on the internet and found all sorts of stuff out about it. Taylor has been officially badged the salesman for the Discord community. These are just some of the few things that you could benefit from by joining. Great health advice. Okay, I have this one here, but I don't. Yeah, I'll just talk about it now. Right here. So, James Pethokoukis AEI, CNBC, my book, The Conservative Futurist. He said, Donald Trump's promise of mass deportation is unworkable at The Economist. 11 million illegal immigrants in U.S., official numbers. Deportation cost $150 billion, or $14,000 per person. Incidentally, the cost of the official cost of illegal immigrants in the United States is $150 billion per year. So what this is actually saying is they will pay, deporting them all will pay for itself in 1 year. Economic impact, trillions in GDP loss. Fortunately for us, GDP is gay. 4.5 million U.S.-born kids face family separation. Well, the kids got to go too. But what's very interesting to me is the structure of this headline and subheadline. So the headline is, Donald Trump's promise of mass deportation is unworkable. It won't work. Subheadline, yet he could cause serious harm by trying. This is significant. This is, as I said here, this is an implicit concession to deportations. Now they're just negotiating on numbers. It's significant that the headline is, thing won't work, with a subhead of, also it'd be really bad, instead of, thing would be really bad, and also it won't work. When the regime is really opposed to something like root and branch, this is how they would frame it. Donald Trump's promise of mass deportation could cause serious harm. Also, it's unworkable. They would lead with the moral case, and then they would provide the pragmatic case to substantiate it. Now they're leading with the pragmatic case and providing a moral justification to substantiate it. To me, this signals that the regime is in its reactive posture now. This is now them going into oppositional mode. This is them acting as the outer party. It won't work. This just invites, here's how it would work. Whereas, it's really bad would invite the, no, it's really good, which is harder to sell. It's much easier to sell, hey, here's how it would work. Now we're just debating the economics of it. I think it's subtle, but it's a significant shift. Okay, so now I've got an interesting contrast between a Kamala take and a Trump take, and then I've lined up a bunch of funny Trump clips just for the sake of it, because we can never have enough of them. Then we got a little Yarvin, PayPal Mafia, and then Venezuela, and Aurora, Colorado, and then Elon's timeline. So, shout out to Vigilant Fox. His curation is very helpful. So this is John McWhorter, Columbia professor, says that Kamala Harris doesn't speak in word salads. It's just her way of being articulate. This is a whopper of a clip.
Have to listen to her in the right way. She actually has learned a really effective way of speaking smoothly. She does these triplets, and she'll say the ambitions, the hopes, and the aspirations of the American people. Those three things are really all the same. The reason she did it is not because she's stuttering, it's because that is her way of not saying She's avoiding saying or hesitating. She wanted to say aspirations, and then she'll give the synonyms as she waits. That's a form of being articulate. Or if you watched her last night, then you could see that what she was really doing was she wanted to do two things. She wanted to talk about economic policy. She had a list in her head, and she wanted to keep saying, you got the feeling she had been told and she agreed, that we can't look backwards. Anything else that Bash said to her, her thought was, how can I bring it back to that? And that meant that you couldn't listen to her like she was trying to write an article or something like that. What you say isn't always what you mean. She speaks ritualistically like a politician. If somebody asks you, do you have the time? Your answer is not, I do. If you, do you have the time? Right. Yes, it's 4 o'clock. Well, you have to understand that words don't always mean what they mean.
You have to understand that words don't always mean what they mean. So she's avoiding saying
Have to listen.
So she repeats with synonyms. This is like one step above saying repeating with synonyms because your mind is trying to catch up with what you're saying. And so you're just going to repeat synonyms. Like this is a simple verbal crutch to overcome the saying thing, but it's not really better. You're still not you're not delivering any more value or information by just repeating synonyms. Now what's funny is, compare that with this.
You know, I do the weave. You know what the weave is? I'll talk about like 9 different things and they all come back brilliantly together. And it's like, and friends of mine that are like English professors, they say, it's the most brilliant thing I've ever seen. But the fake news, you know what they say? He rambled. You know.
So in his Trumpian way here, with his like 85 words that he has access to form sentences, he's actually demonstrating that this is something that he does. He does this masterfully. She doesn't contribute anything extra with her extra words. She genuinely does ramble. I don't even think you'd call it rambling. But he does this, where he starts talking about one thing, and then picks up from that and goes to a separate thing, and then picks up from that and goes to a separate thing, and picks up from that and goes to a separate thing, and then ties them all back in together again. He's a masterful orator, because he can do this, and he can go for hours doing this. So then you wind up getting 9 separate different conversations all looped into one. It's funny how he says, I have friends who are English professors who are like, it's brilliant. What that tells me is that he has had people who are English professors talk to him about this. And his takeaway from it was, I have friends who are English professors, and they're like, it's brilliant. I like the caption. James Joyce rebutting critics who called Finnegan's Wake an assault on the English language circa 1939. All right, so in honor of that, we now must watch, I think I've got, is this 4 clips? Yeah, 4 funny clips. First one, tweeted out by the Trump War Room.
Did you ever think about running for office at other times in your lives? And then just some advice, because you come under fire a lot. Our moms are standing for things that often the media attacks them on. We'd love to get some advice from you about running for office.
Yeah, so I would say don't do it.
No, run for office. We want you to run for office.
She's like, give them encouragement on running for office. He's like, yeah, don't do it. She's like, no, don't say that. We want him to.
I do say this, though. It is nastier to run as a Republican. It is. Now, I'm the ultimate, they suffer from a thing called TDS. Do you know what that is? Yes. TDS, it's a horrible, horrible terminal disease. It destroys the mind. It destroys the mind before the body, but the body eventually goes. TDS is Trump derangement syndrome.
Did you ever?
Oh, how can you not love this man? Here's another one.
They were actually heading that way. We had them all stopped, but they were heading that way. It's like fighting a war. And I went out to a news conference. I announced anybody that touches any of our monuments or statues goes to jail for 10 years. Everybody left Washington, D.C. I was very lonely. They all left. I watched them. I watched their asses from the back. They were all, that's all I could see is thousands of asses. And that stopped. We got it stopped. We got it stopped quickly. They all left immediately, and they haven't come back, although the other day you see them starting to do it again. They're taking the spray paint and they're spraying those gorgeous limestone tigers and all of the different things. You know, when you spray limestone...
The gorgeous limestone tigers and all of the different things. This one's not him talking, but it's one of my favorite Trump clips of all time.
Certain man in Russia long ago. He was big and strong, in his eyes a flaming glow. Most people look
This was him at like, it was like the G8 summit or something like that. He's got all these European leaders, and then he's like, excuse me, I'm coming through.
Certain man in Russia long ago. He was big.
And then he just like fixes his suit. Absolutely mogged. This is like Trump showing up in 2015. I'm sure someone's done an edit here of him with Jeb and Romney and Hillary, all of their faces on here, and him just like shoving them out of the way. And this is my place here now. Thomas Query says Trump does a good job of using his masculine power to dominate people when he needs to. Yeah, like the handshakes when he mogged Bibi with the handshake. Andrew says he's so good at retail politics. He's genuinely charming. Yeah, he is. No charm whatsoever from Hillary and Kamala. All right, and this is the last one. This is him with Larry King, and I don't remember when this was. This is way back.
Do you mind if I sit back a little bit because you?
89. Okay.
Do you mind if I sit back a little bit because your breath is very bad? It really is. Has this ever been told to you before? No. Huh? Do you mind if I sit back a?
He's been mogging the libs for 30 years. Oh, man. It's funny when the people try to sell this view of him as being like a complete degenerate, when the guy's a teetotaler, a germaphobe, well-known germaphobe, which is also significant when you think about how much when he gets out with the plebs, how much he's like shaking hands and taking pictures and getting up close with people, because he's a germaphobe. This has been very well documented for a long time. He is very, very straight-laced, very clean. They've tried this. I think this is part of why they've tried to stick all of this stuff to him. Remember the what was it that he had like hookers peeing on him in Russia or something like that? It seems like ancient history now, but it was never even believable. It wasn't remotely believable because it doesn't correspond to anything about him. This is what an alpha male looks like. I lied. I actually have one more. Listen to how like actually irritated he sounds in this.
And you know, with the power of weapons, I always say this isn't two army tanks running back and forth shooting at each other. The power of weapons today, very dangerous, very bad. We have people, do we have a president? He just got back from California. He was supposed to go to the White House. He never got there. He went to Delaware, and he's laying on a beach sleeping all day long. No, seriously, who the hell wants to sleep? And who wants to sleep in public? He's sleeping. Do you think President Xi of China is at a beach?
China?
Sleeping? Do you think Kim Jong-un is sleeping from North Korea with his...
I want to hear that again.
Beach sleeping? Do you think Kim Jong-un is sleeping from North Korea with his... And
oh, man, I'm imagining Barron growing up and like getting a lecture like this. He's sleeping. Who the hell sleeps in public? Which goes back, like, that's the sort of thing, like, Trump would never be caught sleeping in public, acting like a pleb. Yeah, just like got your belly hanging out, just sleeping in public. Put a suit on, man. Stand up. Be decent. What the hell is wrong with you? Okay, so it has finally happened. We've heard little blips about it. The libs squeeing occasionally about Yarvin. But it has finally hit the mainstream. Kamala HQ. MAGA operative endorses Trump Project 2025 to give Trump total control over Americans' lives.
So, in order to remedy this sort of great imbalance or this usurpation of the legislative and judicial branches over the executive branch, which has become the Democratic branch with a small d, and thus has been rendered utterly toothless in the sense that the president himself has power over the government. The only remedy for this wrong is to put the president entirely in charge of the government. And that essentially means that the executive branch, far from being checked and balanced in a way that does not work and has left the executive branch not checked and balanced, but simply hogtied and held hostage, is to render the executive branch completely unilateral. And when I talk about
So this obviously is from the conversation we've talked about a lot. This happened back in January 19th, if I recall correctly. Yarvin talking to the man of the tiny face. Kamala HQ, her official Twitter, tweeted this out. Now there's layers to this one. There's layers to this one. This is the tweet that went viral. Chris Stover. I thought she had to be like one of the I just completely forgot. Claire Foster or Deborah Fauci, one of these like parody accounts, satire accounts of the Why Not. This is completely authentic. This is totally sincere. This man, Curtis Yarvin, aka Bronze Age pervert, not only epitomizes weird, he also inspires killing sprees among unhinged white man groups and, among other places, Denver. This is incredible. This tweet will go down in internet lore. Brandon Walsh. Shout out to Brandon Walsh. I'm so jealous of this tweet. Snap, they doxed BAP again. Oh, Perry. Wrong guy, Chris. Bronze Age pervert, or BAP as they call him, is actually an anonymous account run by Barron Trump. So, Oren McIntyre, I regret to inform you that the normie Dems have discovered the online right. Shout out to iForklift. Men only dream of posting gems like this. Sargon's in on it. This is fantastic bait. Absolutely brilliant. I don't know if she did it on purpose or if she actually thinks that's him. I feel like she's got it, given the account. Like, look at this stuff. Retweeting all the lib stuff. Putin visits Mongolia despite international arrest warrant. Actually using the native share thing on Financial Times to tweet out a link. If this is a performance account, it is the deepest one that I've ever seen. And they laid the groundwork for a long time before rolling out this absolute banger. Now, what was interesting to me with this is seeing some of the other accounts that got in on it. Mark Andreessen. He can meme with the best of them. He had that one. Then he had this banger. Ridiculous. Everyone knows this is Bronze Age pervert. It turns out that the, hey, Mark Andreessen follows me thing was, there's actually some substance to that. Additionally, check out what got dropped just before I went live here. I've got David Sachs' Twitter notifications turned on. And I saw this little account here. Look who he's followed by. Mark Andreessen and David Sachs are among the 229 followers. And this is actually him. Yes. This is him. This is the greatest part of this. So to add another layer to all of this, this clip only makes sense when you realize that I'm talking about President Biden. It's not too late for the president to break out of Rehoboth, assume his full constitutional powers, and get back on the ballot. Wake up, they're treating him like Gorbachev. And that reminded me that that is who he was talking about. So this clip that they've pulled out here, he's talking about Biden. And there was another, I don't remember where it was, but somebody else pulled out one of his blogs where he talks about his earnest support for the Biden-Harris ticket. But David Sachs is one of the first people to retweet this and reply to it. And David Sachs and Mark Andreessen are the only two, or as of before, they were the only two people who I'm following who are following him. Conclude from that what you will. Okay. So when I was doing the PayPal Mafia deep digs, there were some of them I came across who were very obviously much more radicalized than others. Like, for example, Reid Hoffman is literally one of the first names on the PayPal Mafia Wikipedia. And there's a pretty clear divergence there. I saw he was on All In Podcast, and I've got to watch that. I've got to... I know people have already asked me about it, and I know that more are coming since it dropped just before the weekend. And it's a long weekend, so I'm expecting more. So I'm going to watch it. I'm going to put myself through listening to this Jabba the Hutt creature blathering away. And I'm also not optimistic about... Sachs gave him some good pushback. I already saw some stuff from that. But J. Cal and Friedberg and Chamath they did not. I mean, I got to remind myself, like, these people actually know each other. Like, to us, it's like, oh, we see this guy, oh, that guy's a total shithead, and how can you not denounce him, and why aren't you publicly dunking on him? Like, these guys literally know each other and have known each other for years. So a lot of the political commentary from people talking about these guys at this level is to you, they're like characters in a movie or a TV show or something, and you could sort of debate them dispassionately, but they're actual human beings who know each other offline. That's a much higher standard for like just I don't know, just opening fire on each other. But one of the PayPal co-founder, Max Levchin, was one of these guys that was a little more ambiguous. There was some who are very clearly like obviously sold out to the regime. And then there was some who were very obviously opposed to it and very concerned about it. And then there was a number that were kind of in the middle where they, from their public interviews and commentary, tweets, Twitter likes, it wasn't easy to deduce exactly where they landed. Max Levchin was one of them. I thought this clip here was interesting. Brilliant people have extreme personalities more often than not. And I think that this is illustrative of a characteristic of all of these Gray Tribe guys. So many of them, most of them really, are probably shit libs, more or less. They absolutely are libs. They exist in the lib world. They're committed to the lib world view. They're big freedom and democracy lovers. But they have this innate contrarianness about them that makes it much... This is why I think DEI and ESG were such a backbreaker for them. Because they genuinely do have this sort of ambivalent to racial background perspective, for better or for worse. So I think this clip here illustrates that mentality really well.
At PayPal, we had extreme cast of characters. We had sort of giants of intellect like Peter and lots of other people like that who were just outlier crazy, like a lot of times. And they would have these outlandish ideas. And yet, all of us respected each other deeply. We would hear the crazy idea. They'd be like, all right, you're a total nut job, but I'm going to take you entirely seriously because you're brilliant. And I've seen you be right about things that others just couldn't conceive of. And so we're going to go do, or at least explore the thing you're proposing to do. When I ran Slide, one of my initial ideas was, the roller coaster was a lot, and part of it was due to the extreme personalities. That was fun when I was 23, but now that I'm 33, maybe I can just tamp it down a little bit. And it turns out that really brilliant people actually have extreme personalities more often than not. I built the original teams of Slide to have much more of a collegial, friendly, warm, home-like feel, which made for a great place to be when things were going well. But when things were not going well, you would have groupthink where everybody in the back of the bus would be singing a song, but the bus was moving very quickly. And so as I started a farm, I sort of went back to this idea, crazy personalities are just fine with me. In fact, I want more of them. But the filtering function is, do I respect the intelligence and the talent so much that even if they have vastly different views on topics that don't matter to me or for this business, you have to respect that about them because you respect their intelligence and their talent. And structuring that, building that is a lot of effort. If you are successful, if you're at least diligent at it, you end up with the team that I have at a farm, which is stunningly good. Like, I think it's, with all due respect, better than the early PayPal team, and that was something else to beat. And a big part of it is just relentless desire to build people that can put up with a roller coaster and will all get out of the bus and push it the second the bus slows down.
So this is like this is the commitment to meritocracy that I think really defines them. That commitment is going to be tested, obviously, and I don't think that they're necessarily just going to pass with flying colors, but I do appreciate their commitment to the bit, and I will definitely take it over their. There's something about that California culture that is really good, that needs to be drawn out and isolated from all of its adjacent riffraff. The like autistic, hell-bent on solving problems and innovating and building valuable things and breaking the mold. There's a lot of stuff that's really valuable about that. Obviously, it becomes a vehicle for lots of other bad stuff, and so you have to have a certain mindset to be able to filter out that bad stuff. But selecting for meritocracy is a very good thing. We need much more of that. So the Aurora situation is very interesting to me because, if you recall, Trump has been hitting on this point for a while now. Crime is down in Venezuela by 67% because they're taking their gangs and their criminals and depositing them very nicely into the United States. Of course, PolitiFact rates it false. And here we go. Aurora, Colorado mayor suggests the federal government may have funded sending Venezuelan gangs to Aurora, Colorado. So here's the clip. Let's speed this up just a wee bit.
Aurora, Colorado. Mayor, thank you very much for coming on with us. It seems it's tough to even get some confirmation of the details of what is going on there. First off, can you confirm whether or not this gang has taken over these buildings there in Aurora?
So there are several buildings actually under the same ownership, out-of-state ownership, that have fallen to these Venezuelan gangs.
Buildings with out-of-state ownership. Interesting nugget to drop.
I'm trying to walk it back and do the investigation as to how there's a concentration of Venezuelans in these three buildings. Somebody put them there, and somebody funded it. Whether it's federal government or not, we're trying to find out who these gangs apparently are attracted to where there's a concentration of Venezuelan migrants. And so
it's interesting that he doesn't know who funded it. We're trying to figure that out. Who funded it, whether it was the federal government or who else. Interesting little nugget to drop.
They've, in fact, have kind of pushed out the property management through intimidation and then collected the rents. We have now, or have had.
Imagine living in this. I don't know if these buildings are exclusively populated by resettled migrants, let's say, or if there were other poor people who were living there already. By poor, I don't mean financially poor necessarily. I mean these poor people who are now in the United States, in a large city in the United States. I think Aurora is like, what's the population of Aurora? Aurora, Colorado population. Yeah, 400,000 people. This is a large city. And it has an apartment complex where rents are being gathered at the point of a gun by resettled migrants.
It is ongoing operations with a task force of local law enforcement, state law enforcement partners, and federal law enforcement partners to root them out. And arrests have been made, but these operations are still ongoing.
With the arrests that have been made, are these confirmed gang-affiliated members?
You know, this is an organized criminal effort.
It's interesting to me how kind of stumbling and bumbling he is through this interview. He's I believe he's in his second term now, Republican mayor, former military guy. And I'm trying to figure out where he stands on this. Like Kate says, he sounds like a hostage victim. Right. Like he doesn't seem like he's here ready to go. He sounds very insecure and nervous and concerned. And he's trying to kind of give a strong message, but he's also like signaling for help. And he's dropping some interesting little nuggets here that it makes it hard for me to believe that he's just some cucked Republican who's on the take. I don't know anything about him. Anybody out there who knows more on his background, I'd be curious to hear. But it's interesting to me that he would take this interview if he was on the take. If he's part of facilitating this coming here. And yet does not strike me as a competent public speaker, really, which is interesting that he would get elected mayor. So I don't know if he's being held hostage and he's kind of trying to get out the bat signal. I don't know what the background is here, but these are some of the thoughts I have watching through it.
Whether it's Tren de Aragua, that remains to be seen, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, if they're Venezuelan migrants.
Tren de Aragua was one of the gangs that Trump mentioned during his, I believe it was his convention speech.
And they're conducting crime in an organized
manner.
They were a problem.
So you're able to confirm that this Venezuelan gang has indeed taken over at least some of the buildings. You're saying at least 2 of the 3. And what I just heard from you is you don't know how they ended up there. And you even made a suggestion that they could have been sent there by federal officials. I heard you suggest. I mean, do you have any reason to believe that to be the case?
So here's the problem. I think we're a victim of a failed policy at the southern border because what you have, Venezuela does not according to my law enforcement, Venezuela does not cooperate with the United States in sharing criminal histories. You've had a third of the country leave. You've had these massive waves of migrants coming across the border that many of them crossed the border illegally, were arrested, asked for political asylum, were not adequately vetted, were released into the country. The city of Aurora, we did everything we could to quite frankly, keep them out of the city because it's not our problem. This is a federal problem. This is a problem borne by the federal government. But what we're trying to find out, and what I believe occurred, was that federal agencies worked with some of our local nonprofits and put them there. Now, most of these people are very good.
Hear that?
Was that federal agencies worked with some of our local nonprofits and put them there.
Federal agencies worked with some of our nonprofits and put them there.
Now, most of these people are very good people. But there's a criminal element that, from what I understand, what law enforcement has briefed me, that often follows them, intends to exploit them within their own migrant community. And so we believe that is happening now. Now, we're the 51st largest city in America. We're with over 400,000 in population. This is only several apartment complexes.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'm not going to surrender any part of this city to a criminal element.
With all due respect, it's no longer, just in the hands of the feds when you've got, we've heard reports that this gang has green-lighted its members to attack your local police. What are you doing about that, Mayor?
Well, we're aware of that in the Denver metropolitan area, that there are elements of Tren de Aragua here. And so, we're, in terms of how our police operate, the tactics, what they're doing to protect themselves, is our number one priority.
Total non-statement at the end there. This whole thing is very odd to me because, it's hard for me to fathom that an operation like this could just happen underneath the mayor's nose and him not have any sort of involvement or awareness of it. And, now he's kind of like trying to come out and sort of take a stand against it, but he seems very flimsy. He seems very spineless, frankly, is the impression I get from him. But he's also giving away the game. He's describing exactly what's happening. I think this sort of thing happening is and that it's getting the sort of coverage and stuff that it is it's just not good for the regime. And I don't know whether to attribute this to complete malice or stupidity, but it strikes me as a sinister combination of both of them. These are not the sort of stories for a campaign that is running against its biggest critique being the immigration situation. This is the greatest Achilles heel for the Harris campaign in 2024. The most motivated opposition to her is being driven by things like this. A competent regime would be tamping down on this sort of thing in an election year in the last quarter before the election. They would not want stories like this getting out. This is absolute fodder. And it kind of sucks to have to be that cynical about it, but this is fantastic Trump campaign fodder. Because this is the exact sort of thing that the regime is doing explicitly and wants to continue doing. Because it benefits them in so many different ways. whether it's electorally or financially or politically. But doing it this ham-fistedly in an election year, to me, says it's gotten out of control. And they don't actually have a handle on the spigot to be able to dial it up or dial it back. They have no capacity to control it anymore. It's too transparently obvious. And now that we have guys like Elon Musk and Tucker Carlson and RFK, guys with a major platform with a lot of influence, hammering away at this, the most obvious thing for a savvy regime that's trying to protect its power would be to dial it down and wait till after the election. Because you give the Dems a mandate in this election, and there is nothing holding them back whatsoever from anything that they want to accomplish. There would be no functional pushback. So the smart thing for an intelligent, competent regime would be to dial this stuff down, hold it back until the election, and then cut loose. Yet there is no competence. They're not in control. And this is both a black pill and a white pill. It's a white pill that their power is weakening. They're disorganized. They're vulnerable. The black pill is that these sorts of elements that they're setting loose across, whether it's actual physical people, criminals, or the energy sector, the economy, the money, all these different degenerate schemes that they've implanted in our society are running out of their control. The only way that these sorts of things are going to be resolved is by brave men stepping up at great risk to themselves and taking them head on. And then they're going to need cohorts of other brave men to do the same. It also means there's lots of opportunity for solving problems. And solving problems is a great way to build capital. In fact, it's the only way to build capital is to solve problems for other people. Thomas says, the establishment will just end up abandoning places like Aurora and they will become slums like what you see in Brazil. Right. This is the beginning, or not the beginning even, we're well into it, but this process is going to lay waste to many of the urban centers in the U.S. You need to be very conscious of where you live and what the trends are in the place that you live, and have a bug out plan. If you need a bug out plan, you should probably already be well on your way. Getting somewhere where this sort of thing isn't happening, because there is no just solve the problem and make it better and it's going to go back to the way it was before. There isn't the resources and the coordination to solve these types of problems in all these different cities all at the same time. The only way they're going to be solved is at the local level from the bottom up. I was listening to Pete Quinones' stream yesterday, and he mentioned the three most important positions if you want to be able to protect and build up your local communities. I think he said sheriff, head of the school board, and mayor, in that order. The sheriff would be number one. Having a network of strong, activist, good sheriffs would go a long ways toward beginning to rebuild our communities from this sort of thing. But you're going to have to figure out for yourself and your family at what point it behooves you to stay and fight, and where the line is where you need to go somewhere else. Because there are going to be pockets of America that are basically unlivable for probably some decades. They're not going to get better. They're going to get worse and worse. And urban Colorado is one of the worst places. Not worst, but worse. Definitely worse than average. Which is a shame, because Colorado is a beautiful, beautiful state. It would be probably top 3 in my list of ideal states to live if it wasn't for the political circumstance there. It's becoming like California Central. All right, so continuing on with the subject of intra-elite conflict, we're going to roll now through Elon Musk's timeline over the last few days, because this is going to be the best way to stay up to date on everything that's going on here, because he's tweeting about it relentlessly. I was sitting here trying to get this show on the road, and my phone's just because he was going off this morning. So, End Wokeness, one of his favorite viral accounts, says the regime in Brazil just ordered X to be taken down within 24 hours. App stores have 5 days to comply. $8,874 daily fines for using a VPN. Everyone needs to wake up. Yes, it could happen here too. He says free speech is the bedrock of democracy, and an unelected pseudo-judge in Brazil is destroying it for political purposes. Sean McGuire says the West is 3 months away from being lost. Canada, France, and Brazil are already gone. He says the attacks this year on free speech are unprecedented in the 21st century. It will happen in America too if Kamala Walls gain power. Just listen to what they've said. We've talked before on the show here about Twitter and the acquisition of Twitter being effectively a military move. So you can read between the lines the appeals to free speech and such that have a bit of a boomer lib tone to them, or flavor, but you can hear the implications. You can see the way that they perceive places like Canada, France, and Brazil, and they're tying that to the election. This isn't just rhetoric. Brazil's Supreme Court says anyone using a VPN to access X will be fined up to $8,874 a day. We're going to get some context on these numbers here in just a minute. He's quote tweeting Stephen Miller. If Democrats win, they will eliminate the filibuster, pax SCOTUS, make D.C. a state, import a new electorate with full voting rights, declare dissent hate speech punishable with jail time, enforce a vast censorship and surveillance regime, make their power over you permanent. Elon co-signs that message. He's quote tweeting Jim Jordan about Special Prosecutor Jack Smith and interfering in the election. Censorship is a certainty if Dems win. X is the number one source of truth in Brazil. This is the reason why dictator Alexandre de Moraes is trying to shut it down. He's also signal boosting Michael Schellenberger, who I've watched for a little while now, and it's interesting to see him being... there's pretty clearly an apparatus that's building out of thought promoters that Elon is signal boosting and his affiliates. Michael Schellenberger is one of them. He says Brazil's Supreme Court just banned X and announced an $8,900 a day penalty for those who use a VPN to evade it. Don't dismiss what's happening because it's Brazil. It isn't an outlier. It's the start of the totalitarian future George Orwell presciently predicted in 1984. Again, it's a little boomer libby, but in context, like, this is the worst thing imaginable to the boomer lib. The idea of creating a George Orwell future is like the definition of hell to the boomer lib mind. So you can read through the lines here and see what these guys are thinking. So she actually got the numbers wrong here by a significant amount. And in the conservative way. So Ashley St. Clair says the average income in Brazil is around $1,400 a month. Brazilian citizens are now facing being fined over 528% more than their monthly income, $8,800 a day, simply for accessing X. A Brazilian salary is not $1,400, but 1,400 reais. 1,412 to be more exact, equivalent to $251. $251. Brazil is like... I thought Brazil was wealthier than that. No, definitely not. The fine is $50,000, which is equivalent to 35 salaries, or 3,500% of the salary of an average Brazilian. He says freedom of speech is under massive attack around the world. Quote tweeting based Mike Lee. Yes, it's already illegal for non-citizens to vote. It's also already illegal to sell alcohol to minors, and yet we require people buying alcohol to prove they're at least 21. Why shouldn't the same logic apply to requiring voters to prove they're citizens? This is another one of Elon Musk's soapboxes that he's on regularly, is talking about voter ID. He says, just a reminder, you can always access this platform via x.com, even on your phone. No app is needed. Which, for an app developer to say you don't necessarily need to use the app, you could just go to the website, he can afford to do it, but from the mindset he's coming from, that's a pretty significant move. Now, here's where things start getting really interesting. So Brennan Carr, FCC, says on Brazilian Justice Demore's order shutting down X, the text of his 51-page decision is far more concerning and sweeping than the headlines suggest. His own words make it clear that he's attempting to strike a broader blow against free speech and in favor of authoritarian controls. His opinion does not even try to hide it. He comes right out and points to Brexit and the 2016 election of President Trump as examples, in his telling, of the types of extreme populist outcomes that he's attempting to avoid by imposing a new censorship regime in Brazil ahead of the country's elections later this year. But this type of censorship of political and ideological nature is expressly prohibited by Brazil's own constitution. Nonetheless, he argues that free speech on X cannot be allowed to continue because of the diversity of political opinions expressed on the site might influence the people of Brazil ahead of their own 2024 elections. In other words, he's arguing that free speech is a threat to democracy, a position that is as Orwellian as it is dangerous. Honestly, it's actually kind of fundamental to it. But anyways, the opposite is true. Free speech is democracy's check on excessive government control. Censorship is the authoritarian's dream. Hey, man, if you want to combat censorship in the name of democracy, don't let me get in your way. To dress up his decision, Demore runs the warmed-over playbook of labeling political speech that runs contrary to his own orthodoxy as misinformation and disinformation, which should be a signal about where it's coming from. But authoritarians like Demore are not worried that people will be misled by the political messages they choose to read. He's worried that those messages will be effective. So Elon says, we will begin publishing the long list of his crimes along with the specific Brazilian laws that he broke tomorrow. Obviously, he does not need to abide by U.S. law, but he does need to abide by his own country's law. He's a dictator and a fraud, not a justice. As I was saying, the Democratic Party is importing voters. It's as simple as that. He says the Brazilian people will learn of his crimes no matter how much he tries to stop it. Retweeting Ted Cruz. Pelosi says she wants amnesty for illegal immigrants while on Bill Maher's show. He says, believe what they say. Alexandria de Voldemort. I'll never get tired of the shitposting billionaires. Toccata and Subterfuge. I got your message. He says, testing. Your comment posted. Brazil 2024, where basic internet freedom is now a crime. This guy was interesting. Back in 2016, I used to be a never Trumper. Honestly, I didn't know why. I even streaked the NBA Finals with Trump sucks written across my chest. Living in LA had me brainwashed, believing he was a racist. Now I fully endorse Trump to be the next president of the United States. I learned he was a racist, and now I fully endorse it. He's the only man capable for the job. 12 million views. Holy crap. This is an interesting story. It didn't seem worthy of the whole thing, but of an actual segment on the show. But Tim Wall's brother has said that he is not a fan of his brother and said that he absolutely is not the type of character you want making decisions about your future. So signal boosting more Mike and Schellenberger stuff, talking about 1984 type totalitarianism. And okay, this guy says, in Brazil, we do not have X anymore since midnight. I'm tweeting this with VPN. This tweet may cost me almost $10,000, according to the decision of the tyrant friends with Lula, the president. Every Brazilian that posts on X from now on will be fined 50,000 real, according to his illegal ruling. My dignity is worth much more than that. Actually, it's priceless. I'll keep tweeting regardless of state persecution or threats because I believe in freedom of expression, democracy, and real justice. Brazilians will take to the streets, yada, yada, yada. Shout out to that dude. I keep telling people that this guy, Alexandre, is the dictator of Brazil, not a judge. He just wears that as a costume. He has supreme executive, judicial, and legislative power, aka dictator. The cloak he wears is to trick fools in the West into thinking that he's a judge. He's a Starlink direct-to-mobile phone internet is exclusive with T-Mobile in the U.S. for the first year and then other carriers thereafter. We're starting off working with one carrier in each country, but ultimately hope to serve all carriers. This sort of thing is why he is under such heat. Searches for VPN in Brazil skyrocket. Mario Knopfel. He's another one of these guys who is Michael Schellenberger, Mario Knopfel, Mike Benz. Several of these guys are forming sort of a new, narrative apparatus for seeding the things that guys like Elon Musk want to be able to boost this way. Back in 2022, Elon Musk was awarded the Grand Cross of the Order of Merit and recognition of his exceptional contributions to Brazil. He provided Starlink internet for 19,000 schools located in rural areas of Brazil and for environmental monitoring of the Amazon forest. My, how things have changed. Signal boosting Mike Solana, New York Times, says the Constitution is sacred. Is it also dangerous? They want to undermine the Constitution. So here's their new account that they've formed. Alexandre Files. This account will reveal the unlawful directives issued to X by Alexandre de Moraes. Today, we begin shining a light on the abuses of Brazilian law committed by Alexandre de Moraes. We have been forced to share these orders because there is no transparency from the court, and the people who are being censored have no recourse to appeal. Our own appeals have been ignored, and now the people of Brazil are denied access to X. Secret justice is no justice at all. Today, we say that must change. So they've created a think about the number of people who go into this. Like, this isn't just Elon. Think about how many people at X have to be involved in something like this and coordinating it and pushing it out, monitoring the account. These are not like hardcore dissident right loyalists or something who are doing this. We're getting into this is some pretty significant geopolitical stuff. He says, today we launched the daily data dump on the crimes under Brazilian law that fake judge Alexandre has committed. He can block this platform in Brazil, but he can't stop the whole world from knowing his illegal, shameful, and hypocritical deeds. Karma's a bitch, bro. Follow this account if you're curious about the evil deeds of Brazil's Voldemort. For example, Moraes' August 8 order to X is in direct violation of Brazilian law. See the comparison for yourself. This is the order. X must block within 2 hours and in secret the following accounts, including that of a sitting Brazilian senator in their entirety without any reference to a single illegal post from any of the accounts. So these were the different accounts. This is a current Brazilian senator, wife and 16-year-old daughter of a journalist, a pastor, wife of former Brazilian deputy, an internet personality, and a couple other people. Their constitutions, Article 5 of Brazilian's federal constitution says all persons are equal before the law without any distinction whatsoever, Brazilians and foreigners residing in the country being ensured of inviolability of the right of life, to liberty, to equality, to security, and to property on the following terms. The expression of thought is free and anonymity is forbidden. Interesting. The expression of intellectual, artistic, scientific, and communication activities is free, independently of censorship or license. Article 220 says the manifestation of thought, the creation, the expression, and the information in any form, process, or medium shall not be subject to any restriction with due regard to the provisions of this Constitution. Paragraph 2 says any and all censorship of a political, ideological, or artistic nature is forbidden. It's pretty... Censorship of all political, ideological, and artistic nature. It's interesting to me reading constitutions of other countries. The court order concerning illegal content shall contain, on pain of voidability, a clear and specific identification of the purportedly infringing content so that the material may be unmistakably located. So from the narrative that they're delivering here, it seems pretty obvious that this judge is plainly in violation of the law. So either he doesn't care, they're just going to make the law as they see fit, regardless of this sort of campaign, which will be significantly radicalizing to Elon and the other people working with him at Twitter and the associated journalists, getting a real lesson in realpolitik. Or this is how genuinely out over their skis and stupid and incompetent this judge and his backers are. He said, Robert Reich is such a sweetie. Mike Solana, again, Pirate Wires. There's an article here from The Guardian, written by Robert Reich. Elon Musk is out of control. Here's how to rein him in. He may be the richest man in the world, but that doesn't mean we're powerless to stop him. from the midget here. A couple of things that he suggested. 3, regulators around the world should threaten Musk with arrest if he doesn't stop disseminating lies and hate on X. Holy shit, is this an escalation in rhetoric? Global regulators may be on the way to doing this, as evidenced by the 24 August arrest in France of Pavel Durov, who founded the online communications tool Telegram, which French authorities have found complicit in hate crimes and disinformation. Like Musk, Durov has styled himself as a free speech absolutist. So he's openly saying, arrest him. And then the FTC should demand that he take down lies that are likely to, I don't remember what exactly it said, but doesn't really matter. Elon doesn't seem to be too frazzled. Okay, so here was Mark Cuban posted a poll. Whose persona and character would you like to see young children grow up to have? And it wound up getting like 800,000 votes, overwhelmingly in the favor of Trump. And then Mark Cuban started complaining about the numbers, not the interaction numbers not matching the votes or something like that. Unequivocal violation of Brazilian law. Now here's where things are really going to start getting spicy. Brazil's illegal, Bill Ackman, he says, Brazil's illegal shutdown of X and account freeze at Starlink put Brazil on a rapid path to becoming an uninvestable market. China committed similar acts leading to capital flight and a collapse in valuations. The same will happen to Brazil unless they quickly retreat from these illegal acts. And Elon says investing in Brazil under the current administration is insane. When there's new leadership, that will hopefully change. This is where the big boy dollars start talking. This is going to be a very interesting test. It's going to be a stress test of the regime's ability to enforce its will and maintain its control over all the different dollars. Really, it's a test of just how money motivated many of the members of its coalition are. But having the richest and probably most famous man in the world getting 19 million impressions on a tweet saying don't invest in Brazil, that's going to have a major financial impact on Brazil. I really feel for the rank and file Brazilians. Now, this tweet here really jumped out at me when I saw it. Now, we got a little bit of clarification on it, which I'll show you guys in just a minute. But Mike Lee, quoting Mike Benz, says, is it time to end foreign aid to Brazil? Is it also time to fire State Department personnel who facilitated Brazil's suppression of free speech? And Elon said, absolutely. In addition, there will be reciprocal confiscation of assets of those who support the current regime in Brazil to pay for their illegal actions. Really? There will be reciprocal confiscation of assets. Is this Elon giving an order? Is this Elon letting people know publicly about private conversations he's had? There will be reciprocal confiscation of assets of those who support the current regime in Brazil to pay for their illegal actions. Now, something that I think clarifies this came out just before I went live. So the U.S. seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro's airplane in the Dominican Republic. This is basically the equivalent of Maduro's Air Force One. There's so much color to this, all these different stories now. So we have Venezuelan gang members being imported into Aurora, Colorado, and taking over a foreign-owned apartment complex and terrorizing people there. And it even looks like the mayor is being held hostage in some sense. At the same time, Venezuela just had an election that caused a lot of the export of all these people. The election seemed to be pretty obviously subject to fortification efforts. And yet the State Department has been blustering at Maduro, and now they seize his airplane. I really, really want to know what's going on here. Because the people who were most in opposition to Maduro most loudly were Elon and Eric Prince and various different people that in the crossover of their orbit. Then you have the State Department, who has absolutely sponsored a lot of this behavior. They're now seizing, or the U.S. is seizing his airplane, but he's like a co-conspirator for the State Department. So where are the lines drawn here? And here's where Elon clarifies. He says, unless the Brazilian government, so this is Venezuela. Elon's obviously got Brazil on the mind. He says, unless the Brazilian government returns the illegally seized property of X and SpaceX, we will seek reciprocal seizure of government assets too. Hope Lula enjoys flying commercial. This is pretty big talk. I'm impressed. This is to me, this sends a signal that Elon is aware of significant more backing in private than I don't know. He seems very confident. Mark Andreessen had a screenshot by this Jason Ma article. Elon Musk and others urging people to have more kids are essentially calling for a Ponzi scheme, experts say. I wonder if those experts have kids. Elon says something deeply misanthropic about these people. Indeed. He says there's growing evidence that fake Judge Alexandre engaged in serious, repeated, and deliberate election interference in Brazil's last presidential election. Under Brazilian law, that would mean up to 20 years in prison. And I'm sorry to say that it appears some former Twitter employees were complicit in helping him do so. Anyone with examples or evidence to this effect, please reply to this post. Huh. And so we add another layer. Related to this, before we continue scrolling his timeline, because he's got a few other bangers. Video here of Giorgia Meloni says, we risk becoming Europe's refugee camp. We risk becoming the laughingstock of the world. We need a naval blockade in Libya and to start sinking NGO ships. Elon says, who's funding these NGOs? Someone's over the target now. And shout out to Tysonberg on Twitter. He does have his account back. He got hacked, but he got it back. For those of you who know him, are aware of him. I think we've re-added him to the group chats. He said, to Elon, he says, commission a project for internet autists to map out the funding sources across the network of NGOs most responsible for this ongoing act of hostility against Western nations. Most useful submission by the end of September gets $100,000. You can expose this within weeks. At Elon. Yes, we need to weaponize the autists. They're eager and ready to be weaponized, and they are one of the most powerful forces in the world. Remember what they did to Shia LaBeouf. Derek of Milford says, if Elon Musk leaned into the X Prize approach, he'd quickly become a version of Balaji's shadow ruler. Just do the things you would do if elected to power while being free from the bureaucracy that corrupts the incentives and limits disruption. And what I see here is something kind of similar to that. Maybe we might see this a little bit more. You guys should be ready to sign up for the when Elon sends out the bat signal. This is the 2024 version of going and serving in the military and traveling to foreign lands. Now you get to serve your feudal lord Elon. So some former Twitter employees were complicit in helping this guy interfere in the previous election. He's looking for examples or evidence to that effect. Now, why do you think that they would be going so hard on this right now? That this would be something that they would highlight and go after. And looping in American Twitter employees. Why do you think they want to have this precedent set? Robert Sterling is a powerful mutual. He's highlighting the same thing from the article from Robert Reich. He says, you guys keep telling me I'm too paranoid about losing free speech, but I'm telling you you're not nearly paranoid enough. This was the other one here. Other recommendation that he said, in the United States, the Federal Trade Commission should demand that Musk take down lies that are likely to endanger individuals, and if he does not, sue him under Section 5 of the FTC Act. Mark Andreessen said, you're not nearly paranoid enough. And Elon signal boosted that. I mean, are you getting it? Do these guys strike you as being in a frame of mind where they're ready to just roll over and accept it? Taylor says because they're warning possible insubordinates in the States. Yes. Kai Aiken says so they could do it here. Yes. Brazil Speaker of the House, Alexandre de Moraes, has gone too far. This is a bold thing for Arthur Lira to say. He says the legal fight around X should never have escalated to blocking Starlink bank accounts. Note, we are running this video exclusively from Metropolis, an exceptional Brazilian news outlet, due to Moraes' ban and threat of fines. So now they're just routing around the ban. People of Brazil are not happy with the current regime. I'm always very skeptical of these types of pictures because I've been burned enough times by them picking some random thing from some celebration or something and passing it off, and I wouldn't at all put it past any wokeness to do something like that. This was a protest in Brazil a few months ago. This is why the regime is panicking. I kind of doubt that this was a protest in Brazil, but maybe it was. Joe Lonsdale. There are amazing teachers out there, but a lot of teachers are not educators. They're lying activists who want to brainwash your children. The Democratic Party is run by unions who want zero accountability for teachers, no way to fire them, and no way for parents to opt out. Elon Musk says, true. Long live America and our Constitution. Liberals living in gated communities telling poor people it's their imagination that Venezuelan gangs are taking over apartment complexes. This stuff is pretty rhetorically good. Peter Sweden says, here's what happened in Brazil. They banned X. Apple and Google ordered them to remove X from app stores. People caught using the VPN to access X will be fined $8,900 per day. It's time to realize that communism is a major threat to freedom. That got the Elon Musk boost. And I think there was a couple of others. Oh, yeah, VPN companies after Brazil banned Twitter. Why not America? Those who oppose voter ID are doing so to commit fraud. So now we're back on the voter ID train with Elon. A woman that filmed the anti-open border riots in Britain and shouted, "We want our country back," has been sentenced to 20 months in prison. What's going on in Soviet Britain? The poor Europors. Okay, I think... Oh, hey. Ha! I got blocked by Paul Graham finally. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, you guys have probably, if you've been on the internet for very long, you've seen this one. People who can't defend themselves physically, women and low-T men, parse information through a consensus filter as a safety mechanism. They literally do not ask, is this true? They ask, will others be okay with me thinking this is true? This makes them very malleable to brute force manufactured consensus. If every screen they look at says the same thing, they will adopt that position because their brain interprets it as everyone in the tribe believing it. Only high-T alpha males and neurotypical people, hey autists, are actually free to parse new information through an objective is this true filter. This is why a republic of high-status males is best for decision-making. Democratic, but a democracy only for those who are free to think. And Elon says, interesting observation. And you're blackpilling? We've talked about this before. The X algorithm assumes that if you interact with content, you want to see more of that content. One of the strongest signals is if you forward X posts to friends. It assumes you like that content a lot because it takes effort to forward. Unfortunately, if the actual reason you forwarded the content to friends is because you were outraged by it, we are currently not smart enough to realize that. This is every time I see someone complain about their Twitter timeline, they're just telling me what their subconscious is up to. This is a good thread or a good essay by David Sachs. It's fairly, I don't know, it's kind of boomer lib tier, but seeing it come from these guys is good. He's talking about Gonzalo Lira. Good thread. Elon signal boosted it. Amen, brother. Here's Elon down at the border. He just cracks me up. He says, I was just with some friends who were saying that their feed had become more toxic lately. Turns out they'd been sharing examples of toxic posts with each other, which makes the algorithm think you love toxic posts. This is back to 13 hours ago. I think there was some stuff today. So I want to keep scrolling until I get to it. More stuff from the Alexandre files. Alexandre should be impeached for violating his oath of office. He's alternately called for him to be impeached and called for him to be imprisoned. Oh, this was interesting here. So Mike Lee says, hats off to Speaker Johnson for attaching the SAVE Act to the September spending bill. If it's a non-starter with Democrats to deter non-citizens from voting, they're going to have to explain that. Politically, this is pretty clever. This is pretty savvy. The Democrats are have been very much not in opposition to. Now, I see people call it the SAFE Act and the SAVE Act. I haven't cared enough to look to see what it actually is, but Jake Sherman says, news and Punchbowl news. Speaker Johnson is looking at passing a stopgap funding bill next week that keeps the government funded until March of 2025, but he'd attached the SAFE Act to it, which will be a non-starter with most Democrats. He's now favorable to funding government until in the next year to avoid lame duck funding fight. This would interfere with the first months of the next president's terms and would put him at loggerheads with Dems. So the vote, I think the SAVE Act has the voter ID, has some voting stuff involved in it. I know that they've been all really signaling about it for a long time now, and so this is just some clever political scheming. Holy crap. This one here. The reason the Democratic Party is so soft on criminals is that criminals vote overwhelmingly Democrat. They don't want to offend their customers. Democrat Party is literally the party of criminals. I would say that Elon is getting fed up with Democrats. They're literally the party of criminals. I mean, like, how does a guy who looks like this wind up in a position of power? Like, he's just got, like, blaring neon signs that he is an evil, evil person. Only a matter of time before this criminal is behind bars. Elon is genuinely pissed off with this guy. Smash or pass. He says if you do, use a VPN for protection. Look at this guy. Somehow he looks more evil than Mayorkas. Just absolutely, just malevolence dripping out of him. He deserves prison for his crimes. Massive rally in support of Bolsonaro this Sunday. Again, I told you how I feel about rallies, rally pictures, but it's interesting. You can't make this up. The city of Aurora is gaslighting the public about the migrant gang taking over apartment buildings and committing violent crime. They're blaming the landlords for it. It's literally all on video. This is just basic. No, it's interesting. That was the mayor who went on and had that conversation, and then this is the city of Aurora releasing this thing saying, don't worry about it. Everything we've arrested some people. You can still safely go to the park. Everything's fine. Don't freak out. So I'm kind of inclined to think that mayor is basically like a cuck who's being held hostage and somehow was able to get the word out to Fox News. Whoa, he does look like Matt Taibbi. I didn't even realize that. That's true. He looks like he's a Lex Luthor and Mayorkas love child. Yeah. Kate says, Dems do this all the time with their slush funds that funds degenerate shite. Nice to see our side give it back to them with a bill that's against their interest for once. You're right. Yes. See, with Elon, you got to take the good. You got to take the bad with the good, because here he's also signal boosting Richard Hanania and Zuby. Okay, I think that is basically it. This one was funny. Most of Earth should move to California. Illegals get free medical care in California as of January, and now get payback optional $150,000 loans funded by California taxpayers, among many other benefits. Just absolutely insane. Okay, yeah, that is the end of the Elon tweets. And I got a couple others here. I already did that. Whoops, I can't close the tabs. Okay. Close this. Well, actually, no, I can close the Elon one because I'm not going to post literally every single Elon tweet that I went through today. Sorry, guys. Okay. Last thing here, I've got a Cernovich thing about Brazil, and then I got a thing about Gundo, and we'll wrap it. Something's playing. Stop playing. Where is it? Oh, this is going to kill me. Okay. Jeez. All right. Little color to the Brazil situation. Drilling down here. Mario Knopfel, is democracy dead in Brazil? Just over a month before municipal elections are due to begin in Brazil, Supreme Court Judge Moraes and President Lula are working to shut down X and silence any accounts that don't agree with their political viewpoints. In 1964, Brazil was run by a military dictatorship that lasted for 21 years and all media was censored. For those who lived through that time, the actions of Lula and Moraes share chilling similar characteristics, censoring the only true free speech platform in the country. As the world watches events unfold, people are asking if it's heading back to being a dictatorship or if it already is one. So Mike Benz says, what's funny is both the 1964 military junta in Brazil and the 2022 judicial junta in Brazil received direct help from the CIA to rise to power. So from the Financial Times, it says the U.S. has been frequently criticized in the region for interfering in its internal affairs. In 1964, Washington backed a military coup in Brazil that overthrew the government of leftist President João Goulart and ushered in a 21-year dictatorship. Exclusive CIA chief told Bolsonaro government not to mess with Brazil election. The U.S. Central Intelligence Agency director last year told senior Brazilian officials that President Jair Bolsonaro should stop casting doubt on his country's voting system ahead of the October election. The previously unreported comments by CIA Director William Burns came in an intimate closed-door meeting in July, according to two people familiar with the matter who spoke on condition of anonymity. Burns was and remains the most senior U.S. official to meet in Brasilia with Bolsonaro's right-wing government since the election of U.S. President Joe Biden. The solution was a concerted but unannounced campaign across multiple branches of the U.S. government, including the military, the CIA, the State Department, the Pentagon, and the White House. This is a very unusual engagement, says Michael McKinley, a former top State Department official and ex-ambassador to Brazil. And continuing, he says the U.S. State Department called in massive favors and leveraged personal connections to build voting machines for Lula-aligned Brazil officials. And then the CIA warned Bolsonaro not to mess with or cast doubt on all the new U.S. State Department secured voting machines determining his election. The U.S., quoting from the Financial Times, the U.S. also provided some practical help to the election process, helping to overcome supply chain difficulties to obtain components, especially semiconductors, needed to manufacture new machines. The former U.S. ambassador to Brazil, Anthony Harrington, was able to leverage connections inside chipmaker Texas Instruments to, he says, quote, distinguish semiconductor needs and give priority to the impact on democratic elections, end quote. The U.S. State Department and some senior Brazilian officials also asked Taiwanese authorities to give priority to Brazil's need for semiconductors made by Nuvoton, a Taiwanese company, which are used in the voting machines, according to two sources. And he relinked this one from before. So then... let's see. Oh, actually, I'd actually had this one bookmark before. I didn't see he'd added it down here, but this is worth watching. So we'll just watch this
just
now.
like
He said, I made this simpler, more visual in under 5 minutes. Why? Even though I talk so much about CIA cutouts and CIA back channels as the cause of so many problems in the censorship industry, I focus my solutions on places like the State Department, the Pentagon, and USAID. Mike Benz is if you can get past the things that he doesn't say, he says lots of things that are very useful.
Just like with our Inside the CIA series, one thing I really want to stress is this is going to be a lot of CIA stuff, but remember, whenever you hear CIA, it's the State Department and the Pentagon on top. And the CIA is being tasked with something. It's not coming up with it. It is the execution arm. And so when you see these CIA operations all talked about, understand that there is a State Department diplomat or ambassador or senior official at state who wants something done geopolitically, and the CIA is doing this particular thing to advance some U.S. foreign policy agenda, supposedly to advance U.S. national interests. So remember, the CIA is not actually the bad guy here. The CIA is the, is the, almost think of like Furio, in like The Sopranos. I keep trying to think of like the ultimate analogy to make it as simple as possible. When we watch this and you see all this CIA stuff, think of it like, you guys know The Sopranos? Tony Soprano's the mob boss, and he's got these goons, who sort of do a lot of the dirty work. And like one of them is this guy Furio. It's kind of like a lot of machismo from Sicily. He's got slick back hair, lots of muscles. And if you're the store clerk who's about to get the living pulp beaten out of you because you missed a payment to the mob, Furio shows up at your door you know, looking like a giant roided out meatball and starts beating you to a pulp, and you go, oh my God, Furio is beating me to a pulp. Furio is in charge of the mafia. But you understand, like, Furio is not in charge of the mafia. It wasn't Furio's idea to come and beat the living shit out of you because you missed the weekly payment by $25. It's Tony Soprano or the New York boys. Like, Furio is just the dude who gets tasked with collecting, enforcing. You know what I mean? So, like, just because they're the ones who leave the fingerprints, they're the ones who do the dirty deeds, doesn't mean it's coming from them. Okay? They are just the sort of, loan shark arm. They're the ones who do the dirty work, the plausibly deniable dirty work. But the dirty plans are set above them by the State Department.
The NSC ordered that the new operations be deniable.
Plausible deniability. But again, it's the NSC doing this. The CIA is not coming up with it. The rogues are the State Department people and the NSC people and the DOD people. Yeah, okay, the CIA is a rogue agency because it's part of a rogue blob. But it's not like there's a dirty ass plan. And they stick it for the CIA to do because the CIA does not have to report. Because the CIA has a license to lie. And if they deny it, then the State Department gets to deny it to Congress. It gets to deny it to the press. It becomes deniable because the State Department has given it to the CIA, allowed them flexible means with which to carry it out, and then the State Department gets to plead ignorance to our government and to foreign governments. But it's a dirty State Department. It's the NSC who gives this to them, the National Security Council. That's the interagency. The National Security Council is, technically that is the interagency coordinator of the CIA, the NSA, the FBI, the State Department, USAID.
There was some discussion, and first the doors went around the table, and the only person on the State Department side who I can remember as taking any kind of a very specific position was Ambassador Henderson, who was back for this meeting, and he said that he wanted to know none of the details. He felt that this was a considerable departure from diplomatic tradition, but he felt it was required by the situation. He wanted to approve it, and he wanted to know as little about it as possible.
Thank you.
All right, so some Mike Benz comments in the chat. Screwed Up Rebellion says, what is Mike Ben's background? Pleb Enforcement says, are you aware of the JFG and Mike Ben's lore? And Tweety Bird says, who is sponsoring Benz? Yes, I am aware of the lore. His background is sketchy. Again, notice what I said about him. I said, he actually, Kate says here, I know Pete in his stream yesterday said he isn't crazy about Mike Ben since he leaves a certain major group out of the equation. Yes. Again, if you get past what he doesn't say, the stuff he does say is very, very good. And additionally, he's close friends with Tucker, and Tucker trusts him, so that speaks a lot to him for my purposes. So I think he's doing great work in exposing the way that the NGOs, the State Department, National Security Council, the Atlantic Council, the way all of these different apparatuses network with one another. He's not getting into the super off-limit stuff. And I don't know if that's because he's actively trying to obscure it or he doesn't know or doesn't care. I don't know which one of those things it is. But I do know that the stuff that he's doing makes it a lot easier to highlight those types of things. So where was I here? Okay, so this was his... This is exactly the relationship between the U.S. State Department and the CIA. I constantly try to get you guys to see more clearly. And then Cernovich said the Brazilian election was stolen. Bolsonaro had military support. He could have contested it. The State Department made promises to him if he conceded, then broke them, and Lulu arrested all of his supporters. Something to think about. It is. I think it's very interesting that we're getting to see a sort of dry run on all of this stuff. There's a lot of these happening. Reminds me of the Bill to Caesar thing that Jason has talked about. It's sort of like where you have these fractional elements that combine to form a whole. We're getting these little fractional elements on all these different things, like the arrest of Durov and the thing happening in Brazil. And there was a couple others. I can't think of them off the top of my head right now. But seeing the way that the guys like Mike Lee and Elon and Mark Andreessen and David Sachs and Tucker, when all of these guys do the way that they're responding in general to this shows me that they don't. There was a time where it was the anons, the posters on the internet, who had to. The leadership would do something and just bumble their way into one thing after another. And everyone on the internet was like, oh, you could have easily seen this coming. Now, the leadership seems to get it. They seem to understand the stakes of what they're getting into. All right, so very last thing today. Man, I didn't even realize we were up to 2.5 hours already. We've talked about Gundo. This is like the most Gundo tweet of all time from the most Gundo guy of all time, Augustus Dorico. El Segundo is where you can try to end scarcity, reverse engineer meteorological RF equipment, machinate about geopolitical GDM strategy. GDM would be go-to-market. Geopolitical go-to-market strategy. Eat milk and steak for lunch. Scheme with cracked engineers. Squat a 5x5 of back squats with a disgusting amount of ammonia. And praise God. Now, do you see what I see? I spy with my little eye. Mike Mentzer. High-intensity training. Could these be any more our guys? I don't know if Cooper's watching right now, but I'm going to send this to him either way, even if he's not. The Gundo guys make me very optimistic about the future. If you don't know about Gundo, just go watch some of our past episodes talking about him. Search for Gundo on the channel and you'll see it. The Gundo boys are our boys, and we need to be making inroads with them, connecting with them, and amplifying what they're up to. Because, and I'll say this is going to make some of you guys squeamish, and we're going to get the best and the worst of it, but these guys, the Gundo boys, we're seeing the future military-industrial complex of America. And it's going to be populated by our guys. Take that for what it's worth. Jesus died for our sins. Yeah, right. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm not necessarily going to hold them to the standard I'd hold to myself. I probably wouldn't have like an icon of a buff-looking Christ holding a Zen package. It's a little, I don't know, but I appreciate the spirit. Thanks for dropping in and watching here today, guys. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out. We got 85 watching, 46 likes. Viewership was down today, probably because Labor Day. I'd imagine there's a lot of people who had their schedule shaken up from what it usually is. They don't have work to distract themselves. They're busy with family, and that's a good thing. I'm happy to sacrifice viewership for that. As Taylor says, join the Discord, kingpill.com. Come hop in there, hang out with us. And follow me on Twitter @RealKingPilled. You can also support if you want to send me a little cash. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/KingPilled. And that helps me keep doing what I'm doing. I want to keep doing this. I don't know how long I'll be able to. But we've got some fun projects that are coming on the back end. So we might add a little more, some more elements to what we're doing here on the channel. So appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for showing up today. Hit like, subscribe, share the stream. And I'll be back tomorrow with another episode, and I'm not going to end it without some Hulk.
They're my hero. And they tried to kill the next president of the United States. Enough was enough.